Hello, good morning, and a very warm welcome to the Logistics Hub here at Fruit Logistica. We've got a top-notch program of presentations throughout the day today, so please do have a look online at whether there's sessions you'd like to attend, because there really is good stuff here happening throughout the day. And we're kicking off today with a really fascinating discussion on the topic of resilience, collaboration, and improvements in produce supply chains. And we're going to be hearing about a fantastic initiative that's going on and getting into detail about that. So we've got three special guests to talk about that. We've got Steve Allertz, Director at Food Care Plus and Chair of the IFPA's Supply Chain Council. We've got Drew Zabrocki, the Strategic Executive at Totem, which is a tech consultancy specializing in food and agriculture. And Martha King, the VP of Global Programs at Totem, is joining us as well. So we're going to have a presentation for you, and then we're going to have a Q&A session, a bit of a discussion, and at the end give you your chance to put questions as well. So I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be really interesting. And Steve, I'd like to invite you to kick us off, please.
So welcome everyone, and thanks for having me and my colleagues here at the IFPA. I'm just here actually to announce another person to speak. So and then I'm going to be taking part of the panel. So indeed, at the International Fresh Produce Association, which is the largest association for fresh produce companies and floral companies, we have a supply chain council where about 80 to 100 members do regularly engage with each other to discuss supply chain challenges and to try to solve these problems by collaborating pre-competitive or pre-commercial. And one of the important initiatives that we actually started accelerating as soon as I took stage as a chair was the Supply Chain of the Future initiative, where we try to tackle a lot of the challenges that exist today because of old world problems, and where we try to work together as companies in the same landscape to solve the future challenges and really create the supply chain of the future. Having said that, I'm going to leave it to Drew to have a full explanation of that. So Drew, if you could come on stage and do the presentation, that would be absolutely amazing. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Steve. You hear me all right? Is it coming through? All right, cool. Well, it's good to see your faces here today. We're going to talk about a pretty cool initiative, walk you through a little bit of a presentation and a video, give you a sense of what we're doing, and then we'll chat about it and look forward to your questions as we move through. So this is a video of a recent collabothon that we did, a highlights reel, and then we'll get in and we'll explain it in just a moment.
This is a gathering with a bold mission: to transform the future of fresh produce supply chains. This wasn't just another conference. This was where vision became action. Data doesn't move food, collaboration does. Through innovative simulations and hands-on exercises, participants experienced real supply chain challenges firsthand. From quality control pressures to documentation burdens, every pain point became an opportunity for transformation. 4 massive collaboration walls became living maps of the supply chain. Teams rotated through stations, building on each other's insights, discovering opportunities at every touch point, from growing operations to retail delivery. Together, they uncovered 3 transformative opportunities: AI-powered shelf life prediction, dynamic incentive models that reward quality, and streamlined verification systems that build trust while protecting sensitive data. This unprecedented collaboration sparked a roadmap for change, starting with a data-driven hackathon which will bring together analysts, developers, operators, and standards bodies to turn insights into action. Real-life pilots will prove what's possible with major retailers and growers implementing predictive tools that will reduce waste and increase freshness. The initiative extends globally with innovation hubs across Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, multiplying our impact through diverse perspectives and approaches. Join us in building a future where growers get better returns, retailers reduce waste, and consumers enjoy fresher produce. Together, we're creating a supply chain that delivers more value for everyone. The future of fresh produce is collaborative, and it starts with you. Connect with IFPA today and be part of the transformation.
We had some cool pictures. We talked at this microphone. We had some great pictures, some good interaction. It was an amazing event. We had about 120 folks that came together from all across the supply chain. Folks from growing operations and agronomy, horticulturists, service providers. We had packer, shipper, processors, logistics companies, standards bodies, regulators, retailers, food services. Everybody was in the room. It was fantastic. We made them get up and go walk around. We had over 5,000 sticky notes on the wall by the end of the day. It was wonderful. It was cool just to see it all come together. Steve kicked us off remembering why we were there. This was a picture taken here in a European port, and we think about the impact of what this means for the millions of families that struggle to feed their children every day, for the men and women that toil the soil, that grow the fruits and vegetables, to see this happen, not to mention what this does for our environment. Right? So there's good reason to be here, and supply chain is where things happen. And so this is a great opportunity for us to really make a difference. But this was, I'll just kind of move through these slides. This wasn't just something that came out of nowhere. Back in 2018, we were trying to wrestle with how do we exchange food safety information across the supply chain. And what we found is interoperability was a real challenge. Stuff just didn't work, right? Information were in data silos, and we would send it to the next system, and it didn't fit. And then we would try to work through that, and the big blockchain hype came out, and it was another technology forced upon industry to say, well, we're going to solve problems with just more tech. Well, that doesn't solve problems, right? It often creates more problems. We end up with data silos and tech companies trying to extract value from the supply chain. We needed to flip the script. We need solutions that actually are additive and add value and transfer value through the supply chain, not take it away from industry. Life changed in 2020. I don't know if you noticed, things got a little weird for a minute. We stopped. We thought that was a great opportunity to listen, to pay attention to what was going on. So our supply chain council and our partners from around the globe paid close attention. And you know what? Produce industry has something to be proud of. We were one of the few industries that still had food on the shelf, fresh food. We did a damn good job, but it wasn't easy. And it was difficult, and there was a lot of lessons learned. And we realized that if we would use human-centered design thinking and really collaborative approaches to understanding what are the challenges, what are the opportunities that really make a difference, and we focused on those, we could actually put our energy into things that would make a meaningful impact for industry. So we built a plan. We wanted to be market-focused. We wanted to look at things that truly added value, not just another technology solution. We built that over the several years. We built coalitions around the world, and we decided in 2024, with the leadership of Ed Tracy and Steve, as he came into the chair of this position, to say, let's move this forward. Let's make it happen. So we launched the program at the Washington conference in DC, where many people came from around the world for our conference, and we put it on the table. We said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about this? Is this something that you could get behind? We would really like your input. And it was overwhelming. It was great. We had the interactive surveys, and we collected data, and we really tuned the program based on input from across the industry. And we launched it here in December. You saw the video of the collabothon that took place, but you haven't seen our report. You haven't seen anything come out because we're holding back until we finish this series in January and now in February at the end of the month. We're extending those collabothons internationally. We have to have all of our partners at the table. So we'll be doing collabothons in Europe and Africa, in Asia, Middle East, and Australia, here on the 25th and 27th of this month. Here in just a little bit, there'll be a QR code you can scan, or you can pick up one of these cards on the stage, and you can sign up for that and get more information from the website. So that's cool, but we're just getting started, because I don't know about you, we're pretty damn tired of talking about it. Every time we show up at these conferences and we talk about what we're going to do, and then next year we show up and we talk about what we're going to do again. And so we're done doing that. So we have a program where we're going to, let's see if that's coming out, a lot of words. We go from the February right into March through this summer with actual program pilots, where we're going to start with standards bodies, not just a standard, but we're bringing standards bodies from around the globe to come together and develop the requirements to showcase how we can truly make a difference and bring real buyers, real sellers, and real logistics companies harmonized with standards to demonstrate solutions that really make a difference. And then we're going to showcase those in October at the Global Show in Anaheim, California, with 35,000 of our closest friends. And we're going to show what industry can do when they work together. Well, what are we going to do? Well, this is a little preview to what's going to be in the report. We listened, and there were so many amazing ideas. Everything that we can think of came out of the collabothons over the last years of surveys, but some rose to the top. We wanted something that everybody could get behind. So if you see the two at the top of shelf life prediction and dynamic incentives, these are things that make a difference for everybody in the supply chain. Imagine if we could predict the shelf life and be able to route optimize produce to where we have the freshest produce on the shelf, not just on the shelf, but in the refrigerator and on the plates, not in the trash cans at home, right? What if we could do that? Well, we could have dynamic pricing. So those that needed to move volumes of products strategically to reduce waste, maybe we take a little lower price, but we can get a better return, right? So we could have dynamic pricing where the retailer, the grower, and the consumer all benefit from shelf life optimization. That'd be fantastic, right? And what about dynamic incentives for our other partners? We have logistics companies and carriers and technology companies that make the supply chain work. Well, if they're contributing value, should they not be rewarded and incentivized for that value? Yeah. We're going to get rid of those that are extracting value, software companies that jail our data. They won't have a place in the supply chain. But those that actually contribute to the optimization of the supply chain have an opportunity to receive incentives for that contribution. The bottom two, smart data escrow and harmonized standards, those are the infrastructure. Those are the toolings that make this possible, right? So imagine if you can share your data with anyone without sharing it with everyone. The first thing that I run into for the last decade that we've been talking about this is, yes, I'd love to share my data, but what are you going to do with it? How can this data be used against me? There's commercial interest. Yeah, of course I want shelf life optimization. Of course I want safe food. Who doesn't want safe food? But I can't have downward price pressure. I can't be ran out of business because data used out of context can sometimes be damaging. We have too few technology companies controlling too much of our lives these days. So what we need is a decentralized network owned by the people, an open source network that nobody can control but everybody can use. And that's what the Smart Data Escrow, it's an open source platform. There's still some work to be done. It's a collaborative effort, but this tool will enable seamless data exchange across the supply chain in an open and transparent way that still protects the security and interest of those stakeholders. And it's only going to work if we can all talk the same language and use the same formats, but that's impossible because we all have different businesses and different nuances. I mean, the produce industry is a collection of industries, right? There's so many different things that we need to take into mind. So we have many different standards, but you know what, damn it, they need to work together. Things should just work together. And so we're putting the standards bodies in the same room and we're saying, let's make it happen. We're already working with GS1, the folks of the barcode, the language of business. They've been very supportive of this. ASTM, a 150-year-old standards organization, is at the table saying, hey, we can make things happen. And we also have ISO and UN CFACT. This is a global collaboration of standards to bring it all together. So things that are going to make a difference for folks in the supply chain and then the infrastructure behind it. We're building it together. I want to move on and make sure that I stay on track with the time. You can tell I like to talk. I got to keep us on track. But we're building it together. We're doing the collabothons. We're now designing the design. We're putting together the design sprints. Those are happening here in March. I'll show you our website. You can sign up for these different working groups if you'd like. If you RSVP, you'll have an option to influence when we meet so that everybody has an opportunity to meet at a time that's convenient for them. Then we're going to be actually showing that it can happen. We're doing pilots throughout the summer. And actually what we're learning, because remember this is a listening exercise, what we're hearing is there will probably be one or two main lighthouse projects, the really cool, impressive ones that we want to show off. But there's going to be a ton of case studies, because we're finding that as partners are coming together, they're now starting to talk with each other and saying, well, hey, that's cool, but why don't we just work together and do this thing here for our customers? And so there's a lot of opportunity for the ecosystem to work together and collaborate. So we won't just be showing the big fancy pilots that are impressive, we're also going to show just how collaboration brings industry together and how the ecosystem can build on itself. We have a few logos getting started. There's a number of folks that, just getting logos from legal is still a process, but there's more that are added this year, but it's a good start. It's a good start. We'd love to have your logo up here as well. This is our website. You saw the video already. You can get to our website. We have on the 25th and 27th, you can RSVP, and you can also RSVP for the various working groups. There's a working group for each one of those initiatives that I went through just a few moments ago. This slide was supposed to be hidden, so we're going to skip right past it. We certainly appreciate your leadership, your opportunity to put your own ideas into action and to participate with us. And we thank you for your time, and we'd love to have you join us on this initiative. Everyone is welcome. You don't need to be a member of IFPA. In fact, IFPA is currently leading this initiative, but we're happy to lead it alongside others. We welcome other associations globally to come together. This isn't about us. This is about raising the tide for all. So we definitely appreciate anyone that would like to discuss partnerships as well as your engagement. There you go. Scan the code. I know you've been waiting for it. Everybody go ahead and get out your phone. And I want to welcome Martha King to the stage, and we'll come on up and have a seat, and then we can have our conversation, yeah? Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Drew. That was absolutely tremendous. I mean, it's a phenomenally ambitious project, and over the next 20, 30 minutes or so, we'll dig into some of the detail of that and try to put it into the context of what's happening on the global stage as well. Steve, I'd like to hear from you about your thoughts on the project, first of all, where you see it, and is it an ongoing project that basically has no end? Is this sort of an open-ended thing that we can keep on building forever? How does it continue?
Yeah, I think a couple of days ago at our leadership summit, I said the same. This is more growing into a movement. There has been so much different tech solutions going out there that are being built on certain cases and requirements. But it's very clear that there is so much that we need to solve that we think this is going to evolve more into a movement of people that want to contribute and engage and solve problems, Drew, right?
Well, absolutely. I feel like that's the whole purpose of the collaboration and the human-centered design approach that we've taken is about continual improvement, right? We're going to focus on some things and we're going to make some things happen, but it's also a model that we can repeat and improve upon over time. And definitely this is a movement, and it's a big job, and we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any limit to who you want involved? Is there a particular target part of the industry that maybe aren't as involved so far that you'd put out a call to get more involved?
Well, I think the most important thing first, that's why we also have 2 virtual sessions of the successful Collaborathon we had in Las Vegas, which was really fun, I must say. I was shocked seeing all these post-it notes and the contributions. Only 100 people, right? Well, it was 100 people, more than 100 people, but it's amazing because it means that averagely 50 post-its per person were actually mounted on the wall, and it must have been a big job to digitize that, because it is digitized. So we have everything also in the cloud when it comes to that. Now, one of the critical things was, of course, we first needed to do something in person, but obviously for people around the globe traveling into Nevada at that time is of course a difficult thing. So IFPA has the ambition to become the global voice for the fresh produce industry. So it would be weird if we organize an initiative that is really global and universal without hearing from Europe, Africa, Asia, Middle East, and the rest of the world. Hence, by the end of February, we will organize these 2 virtual collaborathons, to make sure that we also take in maybe the regional differences. For us, it's also work in progress. We're also learning. There is no Bible telling us, how to do that, because it's pretty unique. We're involving a lot of people from different stakeholder groups in the fresh produce industry with their uniquenesses that happen in the different continents that we are going to operate, right? So yes, it's going to be a movement, a universal movement. I think let's say the most universal aspect of it is fresh produce. We want to reduce waste. We want to maximize returns for everyone that brings value into the value chain. And I think that is also why it is open to anyone that can contribute, right?
Absolutely. Everyone is definitely welcome. But if I were, we pay attention to who's in the room because we want to make sure we have a balanced perspective. And so we're looking at who's in the room, who else needs to be invited to the room. And I would like to see more logistics companies and more retailers involved. We have some innovators that are leading the pack in that place, and they're very engaged. But it's about a variety of folks and their opinions, and regionally as well. And then, of course, we're gaining more and more colleagues from around the globe, and we could always invite more. The cool thing about virtual meetings is there's virtually no limit, right? So more the merrier.
I want to elaborate on that, if I can. It is true that in December we had stakeholder groups that were underrepresented, and one of those were actually ocean carriers. Ocean carriers. Now, I'm coming from the logistics industry, right? For me, I'm looking for the word. It's not weird, but it's actually shocking that a lot of these ocean carriers, which is, let's say, 10 companies, they make a lot of business and revenue, a lot of revenue out of the fresh produce industry. In fact, even more than half of the containers that are globally shipped is fresh produce, and they were not there. So I think they should for sure engage and contribute, hence also why Martha and Drew have meetings here at the show to engage with them and try to make them understand what we're trying to do. We are still working in silos sometimes, and this is what we try to do at IFPA, making sure that we all come to a certain level of common understanding.
Yeah, there's a few angles to pick up on there, I think. And one of them is, collaboration is one that sounds so easy, but we know, like, retailers don't often necessarily like to be in the same room. They like to have exclusivity on some of the things that they do. Are you finding that they're willing to have these discussions and would be willing to partake in, open source software that could mean data being shared? They're very fiercely loyal over their data, aren't they?
Yeah, true. But in fact, I was also surprised that actually already from the start, we had the gentleman from Walmart, I think, in the US joining us. And in Europe already, we see some of the retail players that showed interest to do so. So in fact, the retailers are now the ones that are a little faster than some of the other underrepresented groups, right?
Well, yeah, they are. We had Walmart, we had Sam's Clubs. We're both in the room. And it was nice to see their attitudes changing a little bit. Even the largest retailer in the world understands that they can't force things to happen. They really need to work collaboratively. Some of us that have been around a while, we remember RFID, we remember blockchain, we remember these tech-first initiatives that were just, they were painful, and they really didn't help. And so, what's the definition of insanity? You keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, and then finally realize we need to try something different. So collaborative, open solutions are very successful. If anyone looks at the user manual of their vehicle in the back, they will see pages and pages of license agreements of open source software that runs your car, right? And most of your phones. So it's very successful. But just to touch back on your question, open source software does not mean open data. We're not sharing people's data. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're very, very sensitive to the sovereignty of one's own information. We want to enable data sharing, but not require it. But the software and the tooling and the infrastructure that makes it possible should be open, it should be owned by industry, it should be controlled by no one, and it should be governed by people that have a vested interest in its success.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch a bit more on that a little bit later, but Martha, I'd like to bring you in as well. And you have the global perspective. Are you finding all regions are getting engaged, and how do you get some of those regions that perhaps we've heard less from on the global scene involved in this project?
Well, again, it starts with that listening and being open and trying to show, I think these frustrations, I think, are common to all of us, right? Everyone's dealing with the same regulatory challenges, the same environments. In fact, traveling the world, you meet with growers, the voice of the grower is quite similar, no matter where you go, right? They have the same challenges, they have the same pressures. And so how can we take not just that frustration, but that desire for improvement that we know can happen? And you bring those voices to the table, you listen to them, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. This is not a top-down approach. It's quite the opposite. It's starting with those voices, hearing what they have to say, taking those perspectives into account, and then building off of that.
Absolutely.
That was great in Vegas, that we engaged with some of the farmers and well, it sounds almost romantic, but you sit together with them on a round table, you have conversations. I mean, sometimes in this world we forget that they play a critical role in that. And then when you see the other picture out there, I'm like, oh, it really makes me sick. I hate showing pictures.
Show that to the farmers.
No, you can't show that to the farmers. Those are their babies, right? And they really have taken a lot of effort to grow it and put a lot of resources in it. And we should not forget that. It's a very universal thing. It's the same for every grower globally. So I think that's actually a very important aspect, especially also if we look at every product that is wasted throughout the chain ultimately goes back to a grower that is not going to get his return, because in reality this is what is happening, and I think we should never forget that. No.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about that feedback, and Drew, you told us about the wall of sticky notes, and give us some examples of some of the best things that you heard from that feedback.
I think the feedback has been pretty amazing. I think what excites me is that people are engaged. And they're engaged in a meaningful way. And you can tell what happens when people feel like they're listened to, right? And then when they see their ideas surfacing to the top, the ones we talked about today. But there's some pretty amazing things that are happening around like agronomy and horticulture and like precision irrigation and saving water. And then we get into the microbes of the soil. I mean, you can go deep into the agronomy, right? And it's just fantastic. It's magical. And you think about, well, that makes a difference when we're trying to understand the sustainability and the regenerative score of supply chains, when we're really trying to hit the mark on our global goals, when we're really trying to make a difference. It starts on the ground, and it starts with people that are very passionate about what they do. So some of those conversations have been my favorite. But then they boil up to practical and tactical things that can actually make a difference across the supply chain, such as shelf life prediction, reduction of waste, optimization of pricing. They all feed together, and they're all pretty spectacular. I don't know if I could just pick one or two. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many themes. Martha and Steve, any that particularly jumped out of you as especially exciting or interesting?
Well, I do think the shelf life predictability. I think for sure it's huge. It will have an enormous impact if we can make that happen, right? And again, as Drew said earlier, not just in the grocery store, but potentially in your own refrigerator. We were hearing some things about if this, future smart refrigerators and so forth. You could build that infrastructure now for that technology that's being built currently, but the data infrastructure does not exist to make that happen at present. So it can enable more innovation.
I'd like to amplify that message. How long are we now already collecting data? I mean, it's time that we empower the data. And the key word here is collaboration. Because it is not about that we don't have data or that we don't have technology that can help us. Imagine you are shipping something. We have a bunch of companies here that monitor cargo, but then when you ask people what do you do with that monitoring, not a lot is happening. So imagine that you have a shipment going from point A to point B, and because of whatever reason, these are machines, right? Something happens through, in transit. Then you could really, if you use that information to, for example, reroute the cargo to certain other places, still valorize the cargo. Now, what happens is, it just continues. They open it. They know it's going to happen. There's a whole claim industry, coming into the picture, spending a lot of money on trying to collect facts that are actually already there. A guy is coming, is writing a report, and then ultimately, the cargo is lost, and the shipper or grower, for that matter, doesn't get the money, while it could have been potentially valorized. I mean, maybe I'm simplifying it, but
No, I think you're really
That's
clear.
what's it all about.
It's a great example of how automated data exchange that's private and secure could have used that information to streamline that unfortunate process and the additional cost, but it also could have prevented it in the first place.
Absolutely.
And then we've talked with many folks that are excited about the pilots, and they get excited like, oh, I also have these challenges. Some of the challenges, they collect all this data, as you mentioned, but they actually don't look at it unless there's a problem. Right? Imagine if we could use those insights in our business to make continual improvements to our business instead of just reacting when there's a problem, right? So I think data connectivity and interoperability being the foundational layers of our smart data escrow and standardized and harmonized standards is going to make insights for our businesses possible like we haven't seen before, and maybe some smart refrigerators too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that topic, Martha, I've been introduced to this term of COSAF. Now, I don't really understand it. Tell me what it is and tell us all about it.
So Drew and I and another business partner of ours are in the process of standing up a new nonprofit called the Collaboratory for Open Software and Systems in Ag and Food. So Collaboratory for Open Software and Systems in Ag and Food. And COSAF is really about what we've been talking about today. It's that methodology and that's this approach of listening and building these open software systems and tools that are not top-down. You've got, over the last 12 years, about $200 billion expended in venture capital in food and agriculture. And you have these technology solutions. We've mentioned some of them already today that have been pushed down to the growers, but have the growers benefited or have they implemented them? Not so much. And there's this continued feeling of being taken advantage of or my data being used or it's not being secured, et cetera. So what we're trying to do is flip that script and make it the enabling conditions for this collaborative environment, right? So we can listen to industry, the growers, the shippers, the retailers, and build these solutions like what we're doing with the supply chain of the future. This is just one of many initiatives that we have going, that we are working on, that follow the same model and the same approach. And the tools that we build can undergird not just this initiative, but many, many others, right? Drew talked about the smart data escrow. That's applicable to so many other industries and applications that we can do in food and ag. So this is just the beginning. It's a movement, as Steve has said, and we hope to continue it for many years.
One of the critical success factors is going to be sharing the data. But I feel myself repeating already for 10, 15 years, at different events, right? It's really going to be about, trying to rename the word trust or whatever. I didn't know about smart data escrow, but I'm not an ITer either. So, but I learned that in Las Vegas, and I think it was very smart. Why didn't we come up earlier with that idea? The fact that you can share, data, but not with everyone, and only a piece of data of information that you actually don't see. Am I saying it in the right way?
Automatically.
Yeah, it's kind of very smart, right? Or maybe that's why it's called smart. Escrow, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on it.
I'd like to. Even hearing you talk about it, smart data escrow, COSAF, these are terms that don't necessarily easily come into our minds. Give us some specific examples of what these could be.
Yeah. So, well, there's many examples, but let's talk about just the basic concept of the smart data escrow, and then we'll put it into a supply chain example, right? So imagine that you're a grower and you have information about your practices on the farm. Maybe you have a claim to make about the sustainability of your product. And so you have all of these sustainable practices that you've implemented and you've collected all of this data. Maybe you've even had an audit performed and a score, an assessment. And there's a lot of information that comes to then this claim that you make. Well, that information is fantastic because it backs up that claim. And the buyer, the retailer, they want to see that information. However, also in that information are your payroll and labor records, diagrams of your fields, your varieties, your plantings, your volumes, your harvest records, information that when used for other purposes could provide downward price pressure at the sales desk, could be used to cause other commercial concerns for your business. So you want to share it for sustainability purposes, but there's business risks that you can't afford. So with Smart Data Escrow, imagine a dark box hosted anywhere you want to. You can host it in your own business. It can be hosted for you by any service provider on any cloud. It's open source and it's available for anyone to use. You put your data in that dark box. The buyer can put their questions in that dark box, and the only thing that comes out of the box is an attestation, a certificate which is digitally encrypted and unable to be broken, which can be shared with your product across the supply chain, and anybody can validate that certificate without ever having to see the data. But what if there's a good reason to have additional data? Maybe it's a regulatory process or a cross-border transaction where we actually need to see something else for a fit purpose. Well, if that person has authorization, they can go back to the Smart Data Escrow and ask additional questions, and provided that everybody has agreed that that's appropriate, and the owner of the data has previously already agreed to that, it's immediately available. No 6 months for trace back on food safety issue, it's immediately available. But it's only available to the right person at the right time, and it's using technology that is off the shelf, open source, and able to be ran by anyone, so that you're not tied to a particular technology provider or a particular cloud infrastructure.
I like really the fact that it's open source. Because the fact that it's open source will also help people to move into a direction where they want to collaborate more. I said on the stage in Las Vegas, data doesn't move food, collaboration does, right? And I think the fact that this technology is available, and again, I don't know how it works, but it sounds good. It will help people, you know, to collaborate easier. At least it's going to become lower entry for people, you know, to share information. And if that ultimately leads to even a percentage or 2%, you know, of let's say more valorization, less food waste, then it's a big win, a huge win.
This topic always comes up, and I'm almost bored of talking about it, but it seems relevant. AI, like when we're talking about gathering data, everybody's gathering data and linking it to artificial intelligence. Can you see that fitting into this piece at any point?
Well, sure. AI is an amazing technology. I think we need to be mindful that we are the ancestors that will be leaving this technology to future generations. We need to be mindful of what it may do and how it may impact humanity as a whole. And it is amazing and awesome, and we should definitely get in there and use it to figure that out. So there's a bit of a balance there, a fulcrum that we are obliged to maintain. But with that said, you can take your AI algorithm and you could put it in that black box and it could run in there just fine and pop out with an answer and still keep that data sovereign and secure, right? So it absolutely fits. You can also think about, well, hold on, whose data are you running this AI on, and where did you get it all? Oh,
Quality of it.
and what's the quality of it, right? Well, it probably came from a lot of people doing a lot of work and spending a ton of money to collect it, and then it leaves, and they never see any of the value that comes back from it. Yeah. Who gets the value? The tech companies, right? And that's got to change. That's got to change. We need to have an equitable exchange of value for those that create it, whether that's the produce that we grow or the data that we generate. And there's logistics companies and software providers that add value through algorithms. They should also be remunerated. So I think there's a whole new paradigm of business that we could look at here.
But it's going to be a shift. It's really going to be a shift, yeah. Because we are really working in, if you look at it from a little bit of distance, there's a whole claim industry that works around that. You know, financial institutions, cargo insurance companies, you know, surveyors. Sharing that data and putting AI on it will lead to a situation where we're going to create a paradigm shift slowly, but it's going to happen. It needs to happen.
Martha, any thoughts on this particular?
Just in terms of that quality of the data, I was going to say this is why the standards piece to what we are doing is so important, to get that data right that feeds into these systems. Otherwise, it's not very intelligent at the end.
Yeah. Who's paying for all of this? There's a lot of projects, there's a lot of initiatives. Putting all this together can't come cheap. Is it IFPA members? Is it whoever takes part? How does all of that work?
Yeah, IFPA has really stepped up in a big way to provide the foundational or the backstop to this initiative. But we've also had support from industry and from standards organizations. There were some logos that we shared on the screen. They've stepped up not only with participation, but also financial support. it's really important that there isn't one company that comes in and bankrolls this thing, right? And I also want to be very clear that any logo on your screen is not influencing the outcomes. And we make that very clear with our sponsors, which we'd love to talk to any of you in the room that would like to help support financially. We have a number of options to do that. We first look at where is there value that could be exchanged for that contribution, and then we make sure you're really clear that that doesn't buy you a louder voice, right? Come along for the ride. We definitely appreciate the support.
Yeah, and I'd like to come back to something that was mentioned earlier, which is IFPA taking on something of a leadership role. Is it because we feel that there just isn't a global organization representing fresh produce? There are obviously lots of different bodies, but how do you see that evolution and why IFPA, which is obviously started as an American-based, purely facing organization, is taking on this role?
Well, many of the organizations are also members. Right, so many of the people that you think that are already doing these things, they're members of ours, and they're asking us to do this, right? And well, you know, history may have founded us in the Western Hemisphere. We're very much an international organization, and so our members from all over the world and organizations have come together to say we just need an umbrella, we just need a platform to get moving on. IFPA may be leading this, but we're happy to lead it alongside others in this industry.
Yeah, Steve, how do you see the internationalization of the group, as it were?
It's going actually very well, and I think to start with in Europe already, we see a lot of initiatives, task force, that are also listening, because obviously here in Europe we have a kilt, is that a word? A kilt of associations in different dimensions. Or we have product organizations, the European Strawberry Organization, and then we have also regional organizations. So in every single country we have, for example, table grape associations, and in fact there are also associations that go even to a provincial level, you know, to the Grape Association of Basilicata, for example, in Italy. So can you imagine that all of them themselves need to start finding solutions? I think it's very clear that there is the need for one party that orchestrates all of this, but in a respectful and in a meaningful way. And in Europe, obviously, with having all these associations here for IFPA, it has been quite of a difficult exercise to look where do we really bring additional value. Because we don't want to compete. I mean, that's not the whole idea of the concept of an association. For us, it's important to make sure that we complement each other in a way that moves the whole industry forward. And I think in Europe, it's going very well. In South Africa, it's already going very well. I see opportunities in the rest of West and East Africa. In the Middle East, it's also starting to come up. So India, for example, we've been signing up new India, and I mean India. You know, the massive agricultural landscape in India. All of these voices will come and will contribute to all the initiatives, including the Supply Chain Council and the Supply Chain of the Future initiative.
And Martha, it comes at a very interesting time. Obviously, politically, there's a new administration in the States that has an America First policy, not a deeply collaborative international view, I think that it's fair to say they have. How important is it, therefore, to reinforce within this industry the need for international collaboration? And how significant is it that it's obviously an American-based organization that's taking that forward?
Well, again, I wouldn't, it's American-based, but it's not an American organization, not at all. But I think collaboration is incredibly important in this environment. These are global markets. These are global relationships. This commerce transcends all of these political differences. And I think we have to keep that in mind. And people adapt accordingly to that, right? You know, the economic pressures, tariffs, or anything else are just market conditions at the end of the day, right? And if you take the value judgments out of it, you stop looking at this normatively, where you get frustrated because, you know, this seems unfair or inefficient. If you just look at it as another market shock or a market condition, you'll adapt. Now, you'll adapt in a really inefficient way, perhaps, that ultimately harms consumers and the growers and the environment. But that's what we're seeing happening, right? And that people are predicting, you know, they're already making their moves, and we're hearing that throughout this week of what will we do, right? But you may have some things that look really strange and awkward, but there still be collaboration. It just might be new collaborations. It might be different trading partners, right? But it's so critical that we work together in this environment, and we focus, I think, not on what's most most expedient, what's happening right now, but on this bigger picture of the overall industry, what's best for the industry, the technologies, the tools, the relationships that drive the industry forward, regardless of the political environment.
We had a session about advocacy 2 days ago, and I brought forward the concept of food security. Whatever politician over the world, nobody wants to have a revolt with their people if we were not supplying them with food. I mean, remember China. I hope I'm not saying something badly here, but China was very scared of rising prices of pork or rice, for that matter, because people would revolt. So ultimately, I think there are too many places in the world still where there are food security issues, and also in Western countries, if for that matter. I mean, a lot of the countries are not self-sufficient in a lot of the products. I mean, when Maria brought that picture of if we would all go local in Sweden, you would have a plate of apple every single day. Maybe a strawberry here and there, during a period, but that's it. Today, you have a plate with kiwi from New Zealand, with raspberries from Portugal. I mean, you have a more interesting offering. Huh? How are we going to drive consumption forward, by only doing that? So it's really important. Food security is a point, and I'm not so. Of course, there's a lot going on geopolitically, but I think ultimately there will be sense. And these type of initiatives actually transcend, the political debate. Every non-tariff barrier or tariff barrier is a risk for our industry, but ultimately initiatives like the Supply Chain of the Future initiative will transcend all of that, and people will collaborate. And for that matter, for every stakeholder, wherever you are in the world, the issues are universal. Yeah. So if we can already solve those, maybe the barriers, they will be removed later. Yeah. We'll see.
I definitely agree with my colleagues. People will adapt. These are market conditions. Unfortunate as they may be, they don't represent the voice of all Americans or of all associations. Also, when we think about it, like the particular issues of today, specifically with the tariffs that's come up. I don't know how many times we've talked about it this week. It's real, we understand it, but IFPA is a very well-organized voice in Washington, D.C., and we have been for many, many years, with a significant amount of resources that are constantly working to represent the fresh produce industry globally. And we understand that we happen to be at a particular part of the world, but we affect the entire world. And so when these kinds of issues come up, we're not having to figure out who to call. We already, in fact, tomorrow on Friday afternoon at noon Eastern Time, you can go to the IFPA website. There's a webinar on this issue, a number of resources. I think you would be very pleased to hear our position and our advocacy for the industry and what we're doing to make sense of this for all. And it's a very topical issue. So that's another benefit. We may be there, but we're taking action.
Absolutely. That's really positive to hear. Time is getting short, but I do want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have. Does anybody have a question they'd like to put to any of our panelists? Yes, gentleman at the back. Just 1 second. Please do introduce yourself.
Hello together, my name is Bertolt Aumüller from BHS Corrugated. And
we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Bertolt Aumüller, BHS Corrugated. You get it? Yeah. Okay, one question is, when talking about the supply chain, is in your topics also included the material of the packaging, the requirements of packaging, the challenges of future packaging legislation and so on? I think about, ban of plastic material, fiber-based materials, and so on. Thank you.
Shall I take this one first, or you want to go? One word, absolutely. Yes. I think the packaging packaging industry is a part of the solution to start with, but now we go more technical.
Yes.
You covered it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a regulatory issue at the moment, but it's also an environmental sustainability issue that we're looking at. We are looking a lot at labeling as well, but I think on the packaging side, not just the elimination of single-use plastics and waste and so forth, but talking with packaging industry experts, you have a very similar issue in terms of data collection. It's only ever used when something goes wrong. So how do we flip that and make the data more intelligent, more useful, more secure in a way that's not just sitting on a shelf until something goes wrong? But I agree with you. It's part of the mix for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would also say not only is the packaging should be a component of the solutions that we bring forth, and we want to highlight the innovations that are possible and the positive effects they can make. But this is also a great way to showcase that collaboration among the industry helps to resolve these challenges. We know that packaging is a major issue facing fresh produce right now, primarily because there wasn't some of that collaboration done up front that could have helped us have a more clear and reasonable roadmap to these solutions. But you know, our industry is very resilient and quite creative, and I'm sure we'll come up with solutions. So if you have some, please bring them forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Further questions or comments? Yes?
Jacob Voorspij, independent logistics expert. So I'll keep, so Jacob Voorspij, independent logistics expert. So I was just wondering, you appear to be still in a phase of gathering information. I've learned in 35, 40 years of logistics that there are lots of solutions out there anywhere in the world that you could learn from, and they may come from sources that you may not necessarily consider as advanced. To what extent, because I'm looking here at the developed world on the podium, to what extent are we open to also look at good ideas from less traditional sources?
I think what I heard is, are we open to other industries and other perspectives? Other
ideas from less traditional sources, that this is very much coming from the developed world, and what about, less traditional sources and countries? Ideas taking from those?
There's amazing solutions that are out there all over the world. So our approach now is we have an ecosystem management model that we're using as people become engaged. We help they introduce themselves. Who are you? What are you doing? Who's not in the room that you know? Let's invite your friends to come along with us. That's being indexed in a database, which will be findable, accessible for everyone to use, so that we can help to cross-pollinate and connect people together and rise those ideas to the top. We're not even close to scratching the surface of the solutions that are out there, but we're also not going to get bogged down trying to figure out everything all at once. We're going to find some things that we can do and move quickly to demonstrate that we can get through the process so that more people come into the ecosystem, and then with proper ecosystem management and engagement, we'll continue to grow that. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you very much. Just maybe one final question or comment, if anybody has one. No? Okay, well then, to sum up, Steve, I'm just going to come to you one last time. What is the final call to action for the industry? What do you want everybody to do next to get involved?
Engage. Let us hear from you, and we're open to everything. It's absolutely very important. You know, both of my colleagues here already repeated that, or repeatedly said that. Anything that is shared is going to be important for us, because otherwise we get a tunnel vision and we think that we have all the answers. Well, we don't have all the answers. It's as simple as that. So, and we're going to have a cadence of events or platforms where you can engage with others. It's also a very nice networking opportunity every time that you participate, so you already get something in return. But I think you also leave something. I mean, I shall never forget, or I will never forget, in Las Vegas. You cannot imagine how much data points there are. I mean, it was shocking. It's actually amazing how much data we are collecting, you know, by much different or many different stakeholders. So there's so much people involved. So everyone has a particular place in that big world out there. So we need to hear from everyone, because if something is broken, it's like these Christmas lights, and one of the lights is broken, the whole thing doesn't work anymore. At least the old ones. Maybe the new ones do, but yeah, but you know what I mean. I think that's going to be important. Yeah.
Okay, fabulous stuff. That's all we've got time for. It's a brilliant initiative, and really excited to see where it goes over the coming months and years. So, Steve, Martha, and Drew, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.